If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in first. Then we may do a movie clip, a skit, or something that's going on in a community or a trailer. Then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. That's a good deal. So let's get to it. Story number 1. Local nonprofits getting ready for cold weather. Youngstown Blue Coats is just one of many nonprofits getting ready for the change of weather. The organization takes in coats and gives them to people who need them during the cold weather season. CEO Patty Summers and her volunteers say they are getting ready for a busy cold fall and winter season. So that's a pretty good headline. Story number 2. Mental health is a top concern locally. In the fight to get things under control, mental health seems to be a growing issue. Studies show that young adults and children who battle with mental health problems often do not seek help. Suicide also remains a top concern in this headline. Poor mental health is usually the main cause of nearly every story related to crime, arrest, and the list goes on and on. Big headline. Story number 3. The killing continues locally. After multiple people were shot and a 4-year-old boy was killed in Struthers, local residents once again remain concerned about gun violence locally. The suspect did turn himself in, and the police are still investigating a motive, but there's still a growing concern as details in this developing story continue to emerge. It is a fact that people are becoming numb to bad news, and children are being caught in the middle, as a child was also killed in an Akron shooting, adding more problems to a growing issue, and that's gun violence and people with guns wanting to kill and harm other people. This story is still developing. Story number 4. Stay away from drugs. Please. Try not to get addicted. Talk to somebody. In headlines riddled with gun violence and neglect, drugs remain a top concern. In almost every investigation, drugs seem to be at the center of every crime scene and crime victims all over the place. Local communities have seen harsh killings, and many are fed up as the war on drugs continues. In this developing story, it remains real that local officials will have their hands full trying to keep drugs out of their community, as many try to wash their communities clean. This key talking point is just plain and simple. Stay away from drugs. Stay away. Run if you see it. Run. Hide. It's bad for you. This story is still developing. Story number 5. Local residents remain divided when it comes to politics. After Congressman Tim Ryan and Christina Hagan exchanged words in Boardman Park, it remains clear that as we get closer to November, the Valley remains divided on who to vote for. At the moment, talking points and heated political discussions seem to be the center of attention and centered around current protests and unusual stories concerning police arrests and racial strife. So there's been a lot of friction, even in the midst of Trump mania and all other stories dealing with politics. But what people don't want to see is a crumbling of society. That's what they don't want. But they want to see action centered around civility. Now, keeping this stability is what may get any candidate elected right now, because a lot of people are afraid of instability. Story number 5 is still developing. Keep an eye on it, especially as November seems to be just around the corner. Story number 6. How will you vote? Some have already decided to take the absentee route, but still the goal is to get people to the polls. Election boards are getting ready for a busy and active voting season, but some residents still remain confused about the voting process. Candidates have done everything they can to lure voters in, but informed voters are doing everything everything they can to inform the uninformed about this critical election season. But with the threat of COVID-19, some may find an excuse to stay away. One local article reminding people about the judge race also shows why voting needs to be a top priority. Now, there's a lot of new voters out there. The key is to focus on reality and the real issues and educate yourself. There are articles that you can find, forums you might be able to attend, but that's the key, is to try to find out more about the candidates and if they have the same values, and not only beliefs, but if their beliefs are worth impacting the community. The story is still developing. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Is it time to relax COVID-19 awareness? People may be eager to get back to normal, but infection rates are still in top headlines. Although people are recovering and treatments have proven effective to fight COVID-19, but the fact is it's still out there. Now, what got this story in is the details and the silver lining that people are surviving this virus. Surviving. I'm a survivor. But does that mean the survival? Does it mean we should forget about the disease? Story number 8, the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Whew. Poverty is the biggest concern facing Youngstown. We need some money. So show me the money, anywhere we can get it from. One Vindicator article focusing on child poverty rates in Youngstown highlight a real issue and a need for good jobs. Youngstown has been plagued by poverty and mental health problems. The city has tried to reshape itself over the years with federal help, but will need to get a grip on poverty concerns that continue to endanger the lives of children. Youngstown City Schools had to pass out free meals for students over the summer, and government aid remains a lifeline for many local residents. Let's hope that this problem is solved soon. Youngstown and Warren both had a poverty rate above 50%. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines, developing news stories that made in. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made inside the Mediator this week. So don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program.